Welcome back, everybody, to the Bible Search and Rescue podcast. Bible Search and Rescue is part of the West Star Institute. My name is Chad Vinters. I'm the host of Bible Search and Rescue. And as promised in our last podcast of 2025, we are doing a limited series, Bible Search and Rescue Goes to the Movies. As a longtime movie lover and somebody who loves the process of storytelling, this was a natural one for us to want to dive into because movies play such a pivotal role in the way that story is told, very much in the same way that story is a huge part of the way that the human experience has always been shared, whether that's through history or, as we tend to focus on here, matters of religion and history. And I am very excited because I have a friend here, someone I've known for several years now, who is actually a filmmaker. And we want to look at his career as he has jumped into the world of filmmaking. His name is Andrew Neighill, and he lives in Texas. And Andrew has jumped into the world of making movies. He has now done two independent films. He's done Mary from the Prayer Ward and Death Wheel. So we're going to take a look at his work as a filmmaker today and talk to him about story. Andrew, how are you this morning?
I'm good. I'm just adjusting my camera. I'm the filmmaker, so I got to do that.
That's
I'm
okay.
I'm
You do what you
great,
got to
man.
do.
I was thinking about you this morning, and you mentioned we're friends, and I just thought Chad is one of my most interesting friends, and I mean that in a good way. I just love
Mhm.
talking to you about stuff. So this is fun.
Yeah, it will probably, you would probably have a few people, given my background, who would say, and maybe not always necessarily in a good way, but he certainly is one of the most interesting people I know. And we'll just
Yeah.
kind of leave it at that. But so Andrew and I go back several years. We're both academics in this field. And the biggest thing, though, is that he kind of jumped into this new world where he said, you know what? I want to follow my dream and I want to start making movies. And by golly, he did. And they are a lot of fun. So, first of all, I just want to start, Andrew, tell us a little bit about when you decided to jump in and start directing your own movies.
So being a filmmaker has been a dream of mine since I was five. I mean, I'll just go back. I mean, from childhood, and I just fell in love with movies, and movies became a consistency for me in my life where I knew I could go there to experience something very special and amazing. That you could call it an escape, but I think it was more than that. It was just falling in love with story. And I grew up in what I would say kind of a toxic family,
Hmm.
and so I had a lot of pressures in that, a lot of trauma in that happening. And I just discovered something magical, that there was another world, this world of story, and I could go there. And these movies that I fell in love with were just transcendent. They kind of reached into my life and showed me there was more going on. And so I just kept falling in love with movies. And then I made movies in high school. And in high school they give you these nicknames like, you're going to be the next Spielberg, or the next, the
Mm-hmm.
Oyster King of Chicago, or I don't know if that's a thing, but whatever.
That's right. It's another
um,
movie right there.
yeah. Um, and I was gonna go to film school, and just got sidetracked a bit and ended up pursuing theology and
Mm-hmm.
ministry. And I think the main reason for that was I also had a faith developing at the time. And what was interesting was, as this faith developed, I started thinking, oh my gosh, wait a minute. Can I make those kinds of movies, the movies I want to
Mm-hmm.
make? Because, I'm seeing all of these, you call Christian movies, and going, gosh, these are not very good. And I really don't want to make those. And so I
Hmm.
had a real faith crisis because on one hand, I was getting to know this new kind of way of looking at the world and people, but at this other hand was I don't want God to get pissed off at me, you know? And
Hmm.
so it was this fear. It was totally fear-based, which I completely reject now, but it was definitely there. And so I thought, well, ministry is a safer route.
Yeah.
So I'll take that route. And you know, I don't know why I thought that was safer, but anyway, um, yeah, I got into academics and fell in love with academics. I still really like theology, you know, and you and I have talked about that quite a bit. But anyway, we ended up in Texas. You know, I'm married, I've got 3 kids, and I just thought, gosh, something is still missing. I felt that for decades, like something is missing. And it just dawned on me, oh my gosh, it's movies. But wait a minute,
Hmm.
is that safe now? Like, can I do that? And I kind of thought, you know, it's probably not very safe when it comes, you know, if you're comparing it to religion, but it was right for me. And so I thought, you know what? It's not safe. I'm gonna belly flop into this thing and started researching what I needed to research to form a production company, researching the equipment I needed. Started writing Mary from the Prayer Ward. It had 0 people that I knew of that could act. I just thought, I'm gonna do this because this is me. Like, this is me. This
Hmm.
is 5-year-old Andy, but this is also, you know, 35-year-old Andy at the time. And then it just kind of started blossoming, and here we are.
Here we are. Yeah. I love that because it hits on so many of the key pieces of what it's like to go through that faith crisis that sometimes people do of, am I allowed to do this, right? Because there's this sort of, it's community instilled pressure that
Yeah.
there are things you're allowed to do, and then there's things you're not allowed to do, right? So
Right.
everything has to be like a Left Behind Angel Studios production, and
Yeah.
if you don't fall into that, then you're not doing it the right way.
Right.
And you very clearly in your work have not fallen into the mode of Left Behind Angel Studios productions, which I love because, like you made the great point there. You watch a lot of these Christian films, and you're like, this is really bad.
Yeah.
Like the acting's bad, the stories are generic, right?
Yeah.
It's yeah. And so you belly flopped into a really fascinating first go. So as you mentioned, you're the writer of these. You write, you direct, you're also acting, and at least Mary from the Prayer Ward, you played a pretty significant role. So tell us about the story of Mary from the Prayer Ward and the process of bringing that to life.
Yeah, it's interesting. Even that label Christian film, that was one of the things that had to get destroyed in my mind because
Mm,
what does Christian film even mean? You
right.
know, like if you watch a lot of the Christian filmmaking, it's evangelical. It doesn't necessarily mean it's full of truth.
Yeah.
And so and actually the process was, I thought, you know what? I've always wanted to read Stephen King, and I've
Mm,
always been afraid to read Stephen King. So about 4 years ago or 5 years ago, I literally said, I'm going to read every single thing that he has written.
mm.
And that awoke the imagination in me. Like, talk about a deep storyteller. And you know, I don't know what he believes or doesn't believe, but I'm reading these things and I'm going, gosh, this is truth. Like, there is some good stuff in these books.
Hmm.
And I thought, oh my gosh, that's how I want to be. I don't know if every movie I make is going to be a horror movie, but I just want to know, I just want to have imagination and wonder, and I don't want to be hindered by
Yeah.
the rules and the regulations. So anyway, that was very healing for me to read Stephen King and to see.
As is the custom of most people, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
read Stephen King to find healing.
yeah, exactly. So I don't know. It was maybe halfway through his enormous amount of books that I started this journey. And I, from high school, I loved the campy horror genre, and I loved
Mhm.
movies like Evil Dead and Army of Darkness, and there's this movie Bubba Hotep
Oh
with
yeah.
Bruce. Oh, see, thank you. And
Yes.
um, and Bubba Hotep's interesting. So I watched that, and it's a ridiculous premise, but I'm weeping at the end of it, and I went, "Why am I weeping?" This, but it was powerful, and I just was interested in that, and I wanted to create some kind of character that would be, on one hand, my version of Ash from Evil Dead. It's
Mhm.
different, but my version of that, but also a character that would let me take a step forward now that I'm reading Stephen King, now that I'm allowing myself to be an artist. I wanted to create a character that would give me that first step. Um,
Mhm.
and Mary from the Prayer Ward was that character. And that movie, when I watch it now, I go, gosh, I wish I had had some more jokes in there, a little bit more grit, but I wasn't ready for it. So it
Mhm.
was like a process. So anyway, I wrote that, and then I slowly started meeting people in Lubbock. And I met a guy named Chip Polk, who owns a theater company in Post, Texas,
Hmm.
which has great historical value. But unless you're from this area, you probably don't know what Post is. But anyway, it's a small town, but he's got this theater there called Ragtown, and he had a bunch of actors, and they put on gospel plays. But I thought,
Hmm.
well, that's a start.
Yeah.
Let's go there. So I met this guy named Chris Smith, who was in Death Wheel and Mary from the Prayer Ward, and he's a firefighter. And I told him the story, and he's like, "Yeah, I totally want to be a villain. I would love to be a villain. Like, let's do this." And so that was the beginning of that. And then I met Mandy Jones, who played Mary, and we were friends. And I just looked at her, and I thought, "Gosh, she could do this." It was just a
Mhm.
gut thing. Like, I had no reason to know. I just knew she could do it. And then we started talking, and she had majored in theater 10 years ago and hadn't done any acting since. And so anyway, long story short, I end up with this group of theater actors that have never been in a movie, but they wanted to be. And so we cast them, and
Mhm.
they did a great job. And then
Yeah.
I pulled in friends, people who had zero interest in acting but who wanted to die about 12 times. So I had I had them dress up, and they did great too. They did it because they like me, but that was kind of how it got started. uh
Mhm.
yeah.
I love that. And for those of you who have not seen Mary from the Prayer Ward, first of all, where can people watch it?
So you can get it on Prime. You can rent it and purchase it. It's distributed through Blood Pact Films,
Mhm.
and they've done a great job with it. You can actually get hard copies from their website. You can buy it on Prime. You can watch it for free on Fossum. If you know Fossum, there'll be advertisements, but it's on
Sure.
Tubi. It's on Roku.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
it's
lots of
kind of,
opportunity.
yeah, a lot of opportunities to see it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so one of the things that still stands out to me is your leading lady, Mandy Jones, was awesome, right? She was just this revelation in that film. She played almost like the equivalent of Rooster Cogburn. She was, in it. She had
Yeah.
that real true grit chutzpah
Yeah.
to her, but she was great.
Yeah.
And obviously you play a sheriff in it. And
Mhm.
give us a little bit of what is the story of Mary from the Prayer Ward?
Yeah. So the story is that Mary has grown up in a family of monster hunters, and they called it they founded the Prayer Ward, her mom and dad, and she kind of grew up in that. And the Prayer Ward started out as this place where people come to get prayer and healing or whatever. But then one day, this kid who was bitten by a vampire comes through the doors, and that kind of blows their world open and shows them that there's this other world out there. And so it started this kind of war with vampires. And in the movie, Mary's family's arch nemesis has come back, and so she has to confront him, Velkir the butcher, and that's Christopher Smith. And so it's that story, but then it's also a story about Mary coming to grips with the loss of her parents, because her parents were brutally murdered by Velkir. Mm-hmm. And she's confronting that. She's got a great uncle played by Glenn Polk, who is a phenomenal actor. He owns Ragtown as well. He and mm-hmm. Brothers, and wow, just a phenomenal actor. And
he is.
So yeah, when he wanted to be in it, I thought, really? Are you sure? Okay, yeah. All right. But yeah, he's great. So she's got this relationship with him, and then she meets this sheriff who's solving this group of murders that are very occultic, and they're not being done by Velkir. They're being done by a cult. And so there's this other character that comes in, this witch. And so these two stories collide in an epic violent shootout at the end. But anyway, he teams up with Mary, and they get to the bottom of what's going on. So,
yeah. So what I would like for you to help us understand a little bit, when you don't have a big studio budget, when you're not working with that, what did you have to go through to make Mary from the Prayer Ward come to life?
Whew, so much. So I'll say this first. This movie was made with all of our own money. There's no backing from anyone else in this movie. And that money comes mostly from my wife, because she has a great job. So the first step was I married a physicist, and she believes in me. So that works.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then, what is so amazing about this, you see these movies that have $100 million budgets, and then you watch them and they're so shallow. And you go, gosh, how did they bomb that movie? It just doesn't work. And no judgment there, because making a movie is very hard. But one of the things that happens when you only have a finite amount of money, and it's a small amount of money, is you have to get creative. I mean, you just have to figure out ways to turn styrofoam props into, metal swords, for lack of a better word. And so I went through the prop list. We bought a bunch of stuff. I spent the most money probably on the guns, because the guns had to be real looking, and they're all replicas. They're all beautiful replicas from the Wild West. And then other areas where I could skimp on money, the masks, the cult leaders all wear this white mask. I bought that from somewhere, and they were, probably $1 each, and pretty sure they were shared because we didn't label them, so they were worn by probably 10 different people. So we boosted immune systems during.
That's right. It was post COVID, so that's okay. You can do that again. It was
yeah. So, but yeah, and then friends of the cast came to be part of it. And, when you hit walls that you can't solve with money, you have to get creative. So I asked friends to film in their homes. We filmed in Mandy's home for her home, the Ragtown Theater. It's really funny. I asked Chip, can we film the last fight in Ragtown Theater? And he said, yeah, but you've got to cast my brother in the movie. So that's how we ended up in the movie. But you just ask for help, and And we filmed it over 6 months, which I don't recommend. It's a long time to stay in character. It's a long time
Yeah.
to carry the stress of a production. And so we changed that up for the second one. We'll get to that later. But yeah, it was about 6 months of filming, and I was editing as we went. And then yeah.
Love that. By the way, I think I mentioned this to you. You know, we texted a little bit about this because I'm now doing 3D printing. I can
Yes.
3D print you masks.
Yo, yeah.
Yes. In
That's
fact,
awesome.
if behind my construction back here is I've got a 3D printed mask. So you talk to me if you've got an idea of something, let me
Okay.
know. I'll 3D print you something. It's good
Yeah.
good solid resin. I'll get it nice and painted up for you. So and then you'll be good to go. So
You
something
got it.
that's yeah. So
Absolutely.
because it's part of that's the community, right? You know,
Yes.
supporting each other, supporting the
Yeah.
the little people, the little
Yeah.
guys who we're
Yeah.
trying to do our movies as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, I love that. All right, so you did marry from the prayer ward. Now you have a distributor now, correct?
Yeah, that was a really crazy that's a really crazy story. So, all these things that you really should think about when you make a movie, like who's going to star in it, then what are you going to do with it? I didn't think that much about it. Distributor was kind of in the back of my head, but I needed one.
Yeah.
And after I had one, I thought, good heavens, how did I ever not have a panic attack about this? Like, I'm so glad that. But anyway, Mary did pretty good in festivals. Festivals are just really competitive. And,
Mm-hmm.
I was naive going into it because I'm like, we got a great movie. I mean, they're going to want it. And that is just so not the case.
Mm.
Even if they like it, and a lot of them did. I even had some get in touch with me and said, hey, we like it. It's just, we can't do it this year. They just have such a limited number of slots. But anyway, one of the festivals I got into was a very small festival, and it was not particularly the best organized festival. But what was interesting was through that I found this distributor, and I got in touch with them, and they're just starting out, so they're looking for movies, and they watched Mary and loved Mary, and they've done a great job with it. Mary's actually one of the few movies they represent that has been accepted at so many platforms. So
Awesome.
it's been really good for them too. So I'm happy
Mm-hmm.
about that because they really, we take a risk, but then they take a risk, and
Yeah.
it's that community. The Blood Pact Films really is focused on providing a place for indie horror. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and so they really do that. They do that really well. So
Yeah. And I just want to touch on this real quick because it's something important that kind of deals with the themes. When you talk about those matters related to, say, the kind of filmmaking that you're supposed to do, horror is not really one of those genres that the evangelical world embraces as like, oh yeah, that's something that you should do. And I
yeah,
love the fact that you have not shied away from it because your next film, Death Wheel, that we'll talk about in a second, continues. And I think in some regards even takes that horror a step further.
yeah,
Yeah, at least
yes,
in my opinion, it
yeah,
goes deeper into it. But I love the fact that you were like, no, there's something to be said about the horror genre because I love the horror genre. I have for a long time. The slasher films, the Conjuring movies, Insidious.
yep,
Most recently, Weapons.
yeah. I
I
liked it.
finally
Yeah,
got a chance to watch Weapons, and I had to watch it twice that weekend because it was
yeah,
absolutely excellent.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
all right, so
The way
obviously
those kids run in
mhm,
Weapons is horrifying.
it is so unnatural, right?
Yeah,
Seeing a bunch of people running with that unnatural arm out, and then you
yeah,
see Marcus later in the film doing the same thing.
yeah,
Brilliant, just those little things
yeah,
that make such a huge difference in the
yeah.
horror genre. All right, so You get you what by the way, what were some of the awards you won for Mary? Because I know you won several awards for Mary
Yeah,
from
we
the Prayer
won.
Word.
Let's see. So we won a from Hollywood Horror Fest. We won an honorable mention, and basically that's their way of saying it's festival worthy, but we can't include it. So that goes back to what I said earlier. They only have a certain amount of programming, but we won that. We won Best of Show at the Religion Faith International Film Festival, which I thought
Hmm.
was great. Um,
Yeah.
and then we won, some awards of excellence from a sci-fi action and horror festival. We won another honorable mention from LA Indie Horror Fest. So yeah, I'm sure there's some others on. Oh, best cinematography from San Antonio Horror Festival. So
Hmm.
that was cool. Because I did that. I had to do all of it. So when I get
Yeah.
best cinematography, that was cool. Yeah, yeah, those.
Hmm. And highly encourage everybody to watch Mary from the Prayer Ward. Lots of places to watch it now, but it's a fun story because, like you said, it deals with that like kind of that horror campy genre, but it also touches on those important themes, right? You've got the Mary's like a struggle with what she does. This kind of bizarre world of cults and ritual and mystical beings and everything. It's fascinating. It's a fascinating way to look at sort of the cosmos and spiritual conflict.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right, so after all the successes and everything else, you were already, I think, probably plotting the next round, which was to make Death Wheel. So
Yeah.
when did Death Wheel come out?
Death Wheel, we started, let's see, I think we did a little premiere in May of last year, and then we started putting it into festivals. And it's
Mm-hmm.
still doing the festival thing now. It's won more awards than Mary, which I'm really proud of. I'm really happy
Yeah.
about. Death Wheel is kind of, I talked about how Mary was that first step for me into freedom in filmmaking. Death Wheel, like you said earlier, very clearly, when you watch Death Wheel, you go, all right, this guy doesn't have any problem with the horror genre now. Like it is
Yeah.
unhinged in a lot of ways. And it was a lot of fun doing that. But I was on a run one day and I had this idea about a short film, just a 10-minute movie about this guy that comes and visits his friends, kind of a reunion party, and everything is totally normal, completely normal until after dinner they pull out this wheel and they say, "Hey, let's go play a game." And so he sits down and they play a game and all of a sudden, on the wheel there's all these ways to die.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, "Oh, this is weird, but okay, my friends are idiots. Let's try it." And then one of them, I don't remember the initial idea, but one of them gets impact. And the woman, this is actually in the movie, the woman starts banging her head on something until she's bloody and dead. And the friend is just sitting there going, "What is going on?
Mm-hmm.
What is happening?" And that's when the veil is torn and he realizes there's I'm like part of a death cult or something. But I thought it would be really interesting with this theme of wheel if every lead actor had a chance to play the protagonist. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why I thought, okay, well, what if there's a reset at the end of each game? They go through the game, everyone dies, and then they start over, but now it's a new person coming to the house. And
Mm-hmm.
so that was where the feature length version of Death Wheel was birthed.
Yeah. It for those of you who haven't seen Death Wheel, it's a little bit like Groundhog Day meets Final Destination, which sounds like the most bizarre combination you can imagine, and yet it really is. Not only is it really interesting to watch, but it's also a very different tone from Mary
Yeah.
from the Prayer Ward. So Mary from the Prayer Ward has lots of action. There's lots of shooting, right? It's a much bigger cast. This one almost has a panic room kind of feel. It's
Yeah.
that same house. It's
Yeah.
four people, right? And it's
Yeah.
just those same four people reliving this trauma and this horror over and over
Yeah.
and over again.
Yeah.
And so who are your characters in that? Tell us a little bit about that group.
Yeah. So I thought it would be really interesting to name the characters after the actors.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have Christopher Tom Smith, you have Mandy Jones, you have David Cox, and you have Mike Gonzalez. And we just refer to each of them by their first names.
Mm-hmm.
And the characters all through dialogue. I wanted to tell the backstory through dialogue. I didn't want to show anything outside of the house. I wanted it, like you said, to be really confined and to have this kind of rugged, industrial, gritty, trapped feeling to it. So it was all the background was all told through dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is they served in the Peace Corps together. And when they were over there, something happened. Some strange connection to this death wheel happened. And that's presumably where they got stuck in this loop. Is either, when they were overseas or when they came back. And I don't want to answer that because it's a little bit of a mystery.
Mm-hmm.
But they all knew each other from that.
Mm-hmm. So as you were seeing here, plotting the ways that they were going to die, what did that look like? What did those planning sessions look like? All right, what if they just, bashed their own head in, right? What was that? What did that creative process look like?
Almost exactly like that. So originally I thought, what if they like every death was literally random, and that when we were filming it, they actually spun their death. And then we had to think really quickly how we were going to do that death. So that was the original plan. Is we brainstormed, me and the cast brainstormed about, I don't know, 50 ways to die. And I researched ways to die from history. And oh wow, there's some brutal torture devices used.
Yes, there
but
are.
but yeah, that was a dark day. But I started realizing that I didn't think we could do that well. I didn't think that we could actually make a good movie being that random on the spot and that improvised. So what I ended up doing was I took the very best of that list of deaths and I built the wheel around that. I designed the wheel around that. And then Alex Ottolini, who played a dead body twice on Mary from the Prayer Ward. No, three times, probably three times. So he's interesting. So he's an artist. He went to art school. Our kids are friends. We met here. And through Mary from the Prayer Ward, he watched Mary from the Prayer Ward and he said, you know what? I kind of want to do the special effects for the next one. And so he and I have become good friends, and we did all practical effects with Death Wheel, except for the very, very end. I won't spoil it, but there's a special effect at the end that I had to hire someone for. But anyway, so he designed the wheel, he built the wheel around these deaths. And so we knew exactly what death we were going to get, and we had planned for months how we're going to do it. Just because, again, I just didn't think we could do it well that randomly. But what we did hang on to, what I wanted to do with this movie was I wanted a lot of improvisation. So the script with this one was really more of a guideline in terms of the dialogue. Then in terms of the tone for each loop, we actually decided on the tone the morning we shot each loop. And that was by design because I wanted it to have this feel of improv throughout. And so the movie is probably 60% improv, maybe 65% improv, with the dialogue, with the tone, with how I'm shooting it, and all of that. So, and even with how we did the deaths, we knew the deaths, but how we executed the deaths, there was some improv in that too.
And I would not have known that from watching it. Your actors were fantastic. The fact that they could that fluidly improv. Do they know each other like in real life?
They know. Let's see. So they all, two of them, Chris and Mike, have known each other from that Ragtown Gospel Theater for a while.
Okay.
The rest of them, Mandy met them on Mary. David Cox was our new guy. We did some auditions, and that's when he met all of us, was the auditions. But he
Okay.
just, yeah, he showed up, and he was just, he has this energy that is amazing. And I thought,
Hmm.
oh yeah, you're in, man.
Oh, I love that. They had excellent rapport with one another.
Yes.
And with a film like this, right, that's the rise and fall, because it's confined, it's almost entirely shot inside of the house, right? So if your cast doesn't have that connection, it's
Yeah.
very obvious, right? And it just looks weird and janky. And that was one of the things that stood out to me. So first of all, it's shot in black and white,
Mhm.
which is a great artistic decision on your part, because it really fits with the theme of the film. But the way in which they interact with one another, and the acting overall, that it was something that I really noticed as well. Like the way that your overall production really looked, well, it looked like somebody who had had a movie under their belt,
Yeah.
and was
Yeah.
doing something new. And the fact that you're getting better, right? You're
Yeah.
getting better.
Yeah.
And that's not a knock, of course, on Mary from the Prayer Book.
No. No.
Very,
Yeah.
very different kind of film, but you
Yeah.
can see where, like, oh wow, as a storyteller, you're starting to evolve, and you're
Yeah.
taking more chances and those types of
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. I felt much more in control with Death
Mhm.
Wheel. And that was a confidence thing. Just being confident. I got one under my belt. It's doing okay. Now I can really be bold in that.
Mhm.
Yeah, they did have a really good rapport. And part of that was we hung out a lot leading up to the movie. And because I wanted the actors to get to know each other. And so
Mhm.
that way when we shot, we were on set for 8 days, all confined to this house. It was kind of like a party in a way. I mean,
Mhm.
worked hard, but we had all studied the script enough and hung out enough that we respected each other and liked each other, and which is huge.
Mhm. What
Yeah.
house did you shoot at?
We shot at a friend's house in town.
Okay.
And they were going on vacation. I don't know if they went on vacation because we were going to shoot there or if they were planning on it, but either way, they were really nice. And they said, yeah, just use it. And I think at the beginning, I said, can we use it for 3 days? Because there's a different plan. But then I said, yeah, so could we use it for 10 days? And they went, yeah, yeah, we'll go to Florida or something. So,
Look at friends right there. We'll
yes,
just leave.
great
That's good.
people, really good
Wow.
people. Tom and Robin. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and but once again, right, that's the difference between having a gigantic budget, right? Or that community sense of trying to do something film wise,
Yeah.
that it's difficult, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of challenges. In fact, it's a good sub conversation at some point, but uh for like for the big budget films, you have documented like the amount of waste, right, that
Yeah.
comes with something like that. And what is his name? It's Benedict Cumberbatch. Benedict
Yeah.
Cumberbatch has made a big point recently of talking about all of the excess and waste of Hollywood filmmaking.
Yeah.
And that's something that's really cool about this type of filmmaking, is that you don't really have a lot of waste because you don't have the luxury. I do want to know,
Right.
first of all, how much did it cost? Because your Death Wheel looks amazing. How much did it cost to make the Death Wheel?
Ooh, that's a good question. So with this movie, I had a little bit bigger crew and I had some new contacts that wanted to donate their time and resources. So I
Okay.
have a guy named Matt who did the shape of the death wheel, and then Alex Otolini is the one that really gave it the look.
Mm-hmm.
So the death wheel, oh gosh, I don't know. I'll say you could make a good death wheel for probably $50.
Nice. Oh, that's great. That's way less than I was expecting.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, because I'm not, again, Alex is doing it because he's an artist and he wants to be involved. My other friend was doing it because he wanted to help me, so
mhm.
there's no labor that I had to pay. But yeah, it's just plywood. I'm looking at it right now, actually. It's plywood, and you can even repurpose the plywood. And it just because it looks ragged, it looks dinged up because they've been playing it for a long time. And
Hmm.
yeah, I'd say $50 will get you a good death wheel.
Now, so remember, everybody, you can not only have your own death wheel, but you can then later use it to fix your house.
That's
So be aware of that. The death wheel is available for all of you to, yeah, but you got to watch the film in order to see what it looks like.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Now, the other question, Don, this is the big one. I think we all want to know. What was the blood budget on
Uh,
Death Wheel? Because there's a lot of
yeah,
blood.
there's a lot of blood. So the beautiful thing about black and white, and you know this, is that you don't need to use red blood. So we use chocolate syrup. So I would
Oh,
say,
nice.
and let's be liberal with the estimate and say $10.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's not bad, especially in today's economy, because even chocolate syrup is not cheap. So
Yeah.
you stretched
So
the chocolate syrup.
yeah. And yeah, so there's a scene where, and you would think, oh, chocolate syrup, that won't bother them having it in their mouth. But there's a scene where Chris has to have it in his mouth, and he was close to vomiting because he had to have it in his mouth for so long.
Yeah.
But ten
That's
bucks.
fair.
Yeah, 10
10,
bucks.
10. All right. So $10 can get you a lot of blood.
Yes.
And then so $60 for a death wheel and copious amounts of blood
And blood.
that
Yeah,
you can use for your own black and white feature.
that's right.
I
And a
love
great
that.
way to use the what we used for the cuts and the gashes,
Mm-hmm.
very, very cheap. Very cheap. So you buy some flour, and I would recommend baking it a little bit just so you get whatever bacteria out or whatever. But you buy flour and you get Vaseline,
Okay.
and you mix those together at the right quantity, and it'll stick to the body, and you paint over it, and you've got scars, you've got gashes.
Nice.
So you want to add the Vaseline in. I don't know. I don't buy Vaseline a lot, but I don't know, $5 plus flour, another $10.
Yeah. Ah, that's awesome. And
Yeah.
yeah, Vaseline is one of those like you buy one tube, right? You can have that tub of Vaseline for a normal person for years, right? It's
Yeah.
somewhere in the house. So yeah, and so I would imagine one thing did it because that tub of
Yep.
that it goes a long way, right?
Yeah.
You
Oh, Vaseline. Yeah.
yeah,
Goes a long
because
way.
yeah, my parent, yeah, I don't know, maybe it was a generational thing because we don't really have any in the house, but my parents like always had it for some reason, right? And
Yeah.
their parents did. It was like you were required to own it. You were required to own like
Yeah.
Vaseline and Brill cream if you were over the age of 50. That's I just
Yeah.
yeah,
Maybe there's
those
a
are the
lot of uses for it that we don't know about. Like maybe it's good for cooking, and I don't know.
yeah, for knee problems or whatever else,
Yeah.
joints pain. Like, oh, just put some Vaseline on there, right? It's like
Yeah.
the dad from My Big Fat Greek Wedding, just using
Yeah.
Windex on everything.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So yeah, Death Wheel, yeah, was uh was a huge step in terms of your like your filmmaking because now you're getting more experimental. You're breaking, I think in a sense maybe, and you can speak to this. Has the process of doing that filmmaking been also healing for you in the way that reading King was?
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. Yeah. Because, the basically what unlocked within me was there's no box that I have to stay in.
Mm-hmm.
We put boxes on ourselves and on each other. And if
Yeah.
you're an artist and you're in a box, you're not being a good artist. You can't do
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah.
You need to get out. And so yeah, Mary took me a step. And then when I got to Death Wheel and I'm writing the script, there's this one part that you'll probably remember. A guy dies by laughter, and
Mm-hmm.
he has this these lines, and I'm writing it and I go, where the heck did that come from? I love it. So it was like after that point, it just there was no box. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's really kind of an amazing thing, because once it's done, you look at it and you're proud of it. I'm really
Yeah.
proud of it, and I'm glad that I didn't compromise.
No, and I am too, because just as, someone who knows you and who cares about you, I'm proud of watching the work you've done, because it's, knowing especially what this has meant to you as a person, and how you have you've grown and you've healed and you have found your way into this much broader world. It's wonderful to watch as just your friend, right?
Yeah,
And to see
that's
that.
great.
Yeah, I mean, watch, being able to look at your work objectively, that's also fine, because I you did give me the honor of looking at an early copy of Mary and Death Wheel,
Yeah,
and I gave you feedback on both of them. Really enjoyed both, but
yeah,
there's that sense in which, unfortunately but truly, much of the, especially the more evangelical conservative Christian world, is rooted almost entirely in boxes, right?
mhm,
There's all of these limitations that you're expected. There's these stereotypes and these molds you're expected to remain in. And like you said, you can't really do that as an artist. As an
yeah,
artist, you have to be able to break out of that,
yeah,
and to really go for it, even if it means you're probably. And I'm sure there were people who would, oh, I would never watch that, or I would never let my kid, blah blah blah, right? And
yeah,
that's up to them. But
yeah, yeah.
you really broke through on that.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Yeah, I don't know what it is about humans in general, but I think we live in boxes, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's a religious thing or whatever, but we're meant for more than that, I think. I
Yeah,
know, we're meant to thrive and be free.
yeah, safety and conformity in some regards.
Yeah, yeah,
There really is.
yeah.
All right, so what's your upcoming project?
So yeah, the next movie, I'm trying to think what my code name is for it yet right now, because um I actually forgot the code name, so I'm going to call it Granny Smith's Revenge, or
Okay,
something.
I
But
like that.
so with Death Wheel, we had a few more people join the crew, as I
Mm-hmm.
mentioned. One of those people was Haley Duran as the composer, and she did just beautiful music for Death Wheel. And so I have her back, I have Alex back, and then I actually have an assistant director now, Brianne Van Reenen, who's a theater person, and she's come on board, and she's gung ho, and so I have a great helper, in that, and she's going to help me get this shot. So the structure is there for a bigger movie, and this is a
Mm.
much bigger movie. This is a much bigger cast. There's two stories going on. One story is this group of these two home repairmen find themselves trying to solve a cultic murder, and then this other story is this woman who is abducted by an aliens is trying to get to the bottom of what happened to her. And then these two stories that are completely separate come together at the end. And it's just really fun. And with this, we're building a life-sized flying saucer. We're going to use miniatures. We're going to use uh, all kinds of props that we're making, katanas, and it's a big undertaking, and we're just in pre-production right now.
That's
But this
awesome.
one, going into it, is a step into the comedy for me, and so
Okay.
it has the action and some of the violence and campiness of Death Wheel, but in terms of the feel, it's much more where, if I made Mary from the Prayer Ward today, it's much more where that would be today,
Okay.
in terms of comedy and not holding back, and so it's going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, we're going to shoot next year. It's such a big project. We're having to spend this year in pre-production on it. So
That's awesome. And I think it's great that you are continuing to explore, like, the world of the occult and the cultic.
yeah,
That's something that back during COVID, when you still lived here, we were
yeah,
doing our online book club. We read
yeah,
all we read about cults and spiritual. We
yeah,
were doing
yeah,
all those things, and I still have various occult texts and everything
Yeah.
else as well. So it's
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. This is the third. I always envisioned three cult movies. So this
mhm.
is the third in the cult trilogy. So
Sweet.
yeah. Yeah.
And
And
can we
and
call it the cult trilogy?
yeah. Yeah.
Andrew Neihill's cult trilogy masterpiece
That's
concludes
right.
with
That's right.
Granny Smith's Revenge.
That's right. Yeah.
All
And
right.
I like chasing things that I'm interested in too. I've studied the occult and cultic for a while, but then I've also been fascinated by aliens and
Mm-hmm.
all of these observations people have made and
Mm-hmm.
these things that people have seen. And I thought, all right, I'm going to bring that in just to, if for nothing else, an excuse to research it a little bit and
Mm-hmm.
see what it's all about. So
Yeah. Well, and it touches on something that you have discussed already, the human experience, right?
yeah,
Whether or not you believe any of these things are real, it's the way that things like, the spiritual, the extraterrestrial, Bigfoot, right?
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
whether or not you think Bigfoot is real, the question is, why is it that so many people see it?
yeah,
That type of,
exactly.
and that experience with the human equation is profound, right? It's things that really shape us as people, and that's what you get to explore now with these.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. There's experiences that people have, and we want to try and define them and we want to try and explain them. And sometimes you just can't. Sometimes you just have to trust that someone experienced it and listen to them and, make of it what you will. But yeah, we're bringing it in for this. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right. So to wrap up here, as we explore the nature of story and movie during the course of this mini series for Bible Search and Rescue, what are some of your favorite movies that have inspired you in your journey?
Yeah. I was thinking about that this morning a little bit. It's hard because today's favorite movies, I'll probably forget some of them, but I'm thinking about like Lawrence of Arabia.
Mm-hmm.
Is just a masterclass favorite movie of mine, and older films. I really like Seven Samurai and Akira Kurosawa's movies, and
Mm-hmm.
going back that far. As a kid, I watched as much as I could, and I got on this Jean-Claude Van Damme kick, and none of those are my favorite, but I got involved in those. But then I discovered movies like Field of Dreams
Mm-hmm.
and The Natural, and those movies really started finding their way into my heart. That was when I realized, gosh, there's something magical about movies. And
Yeah.
then Raiders of the Lost Ark was another one, the original Raiders trilogy. And um, in terms of some horror stuff, I love The Birds, Alfred
Mm-hmm.
Hitchcock's movie. I love Jaws. Basically anything Spielberg does, I think Jaws is a great horror film.
Mm-hmm.
That shark is the way they shot that shark is incredibly terrifying to me.
Yeah.
Um, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original one, is one of the greatest horror films of all time. It's on my short
Mm-hmm.
list. It's very disturbing. It's not one I can watch all every day, but,
No.
but I'm glad I saw that. Yeah, the Blair Witch Project, I think is, when that came out, that was such a phenomenon. I think it got to that point where it became parody. There were all these parodies about it. And when you look back on that movie, it really is genius. You never see the witch.
Mm-hmm.
Just know that she's hovering just outside of the frame. And to me,
Yeah.
that is 100 times more terrifying than a jump scare.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that dark forest and they're running through it, and you're like, whoa, what's beyond that tree? Oh, I bet she's there. I bet she's
Yeah.
everywhere. That was the other things like, ah. So yeah, there's a lot of movies. Silverado, I like westerns. Silverado's a great one. Quigley Down Under. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Awesome. No,
yeah.
that's a good list. And I don't know, are you, just out of curiosity, are you familiar with the work of Jam and Winans?
Maybe not by name.
Yeah, he's also an independent filmmaker. He's been doing it for a hot minute, but I think you would really like his films also. So he's done several features at this point. He most recently did one called Myth of Man.
Okay.
That is, it's a phenomenal piece of filmmaking for an independent. Like they're doing all of the editing on their own computers,
Yeah.
but the one that really kind of launched him into the stratosphere was the film Ink, INK.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Ink, and then he did The Frame. The Frame was also excellent, but he's one of those. In a sense, he reminds me of your situation because he's just this phenomenal storyteller. They're shooting these films on budgets where they're selling appliances and everything else to try to make it work, but he makes these he and then his wife Winona does a bunch of stuff as well in the background, like the production. I think she may do the music or but I
Okay.
mean they do a bunch
Cool.
of stuff. They're good tandem. But um actually I'm gonna make a move to try to get him to do one of these. I don't know if I
Oh,
can, but
yeah.
he's another guy who reminds me of kind of where you are now when he was first starting. So his
Oh,
first
cool.
feature I think was 11:59,
Okay.
and I mean that one's a little bit older now, but he just watching his progress, and he doesn't. If you go to Jam and Winans looking for a linear storytelling, you're going to be really confused because
Okay.
his films are parables, right?
Okay.
And I think that there's something to be said with that about you. If you come to an Andrew Neighill film looking to find just sort of this generic A to B boy meets girl
Yeah.
sort of story, you're going to
Right.
be woefully confused.
Right.
There's subtext, there's spirituality, there's
Right.
cosmic conflict, and then there's human relationships.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's going to be part of the fun part of watching your career for me, is
Oh, that's
watching how you continue to tell these stories and how you grow in that process and continue to make this magic that I know is a huge thing for you, right? And
Mhm.
it's huge for you as a person, and I love that. I love to see it.
Yeah. That's so cool hearing that. It's nice to have someone who's seen the first two and can kind of say, "Hey, I see these themes in the movies." That's really
Mm-hmm.
neat. Yeah.
Yeah, very good. Andy, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Oh,
Really
yeah.
appreciate
It's
it.
been so much fun. I'm gonna look that guy up. I wrote down his movies, so I'm gonna check
Yeah.
him out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
check him out. I think you'd love him. And thank you to all of you for joining us here on the Bible Search and Rescue podcast. On our next episode in February, we are going to be interviewing Robert Zappia, who was the screenwriter for Halloween H2O. And we're going to be looking at his themes of good and evil, the way that he addressed the Michael Myers character. And I'm really excited about that one because Halloween H2O was the film that really got me interested in the horror genre. And so we're going to be exploring that. Thank you to Andrew. Thank you to all of you. This has been the Bible Search and Rescue podcast from the West Star Institute. My name is Chad Venters. And until next time, please go out and make the world a better place for somebody else. Take care, everybody.